According to the Agriculture Department, nearly 34 million people, including 5 million children, experienced food insecurity in the United States in 2021. Addressing a growing food crisis was one of the topics discussed at the Wall Street Journal's Global Food Forum in Chicago this week. Food and agricultural leaders came together to discuss an array of challenges ranging from labor shortages to consumer health. Jesse Newman was there, reporting for the Wall Street Journal, and Jesse joins me now. Jesse, let's start with the farmers. What are the biggest challenges that they're facing right now?
Hey, John, I would say there are two things that they really focused on. So the first, they're pretty concerned about the weather this year. There is a severe drought that's gripping the Midwest. And we heard from an Illinois corn and soybean farmer who talked about the impact that they're already experiencing and expecting to see on their corn yields. She said that they haven't had any measurable rain since Mother's Day. So that's already affecting yields in the cornfields. And then, there was a cattle farmer as well who also described, what drought conditions have done in prior years. And then labor as well. All of the farmers, we heard from a dairy farmer or a dairy cooperative and this corn and soybean farmer, and, all about the challenges that they face finding labor. We heard from a California producer who discussed how, really asparagus and table grapes, these just aren't crops that are grown in California very much anymore as a result of labor constraints. So those are the two big topics for them.
Wow. All right, let's break those down. Let me start with labor, if I may. So is there an obvious solution? Is there a specific thing that they're complaining about? Give us a little more on the labor question.
Yeah, it's really labor shortages. They aren't able to find enough people to milk their cows and to pick grapes in fields. There's obviously they are, one of the cattle farmers was telling us about how this year he's been bringing in farm workers and their families from South Africa. So having to go as far as South Africa to find people to work on his farm. And, he talked about how as soon as folks come here and he gets them settled and, and trained, they essentially have to go home. So, that's just a lack of people is really what it boils down to.
And now on the climate question, there's an acute situation this year, but it feels like we're having acute situations every year, which leads to the larger question of global warming and climate change. How much was it a discussion of the specific challenges of the moment, and how much was it the challenges of a warming planet?
Certainly, they were both on the table. I think that the immediacy of this year's drought was something that we heard about time and time again on several panels. We did, there were panels that touched on climate change. I will say I wasn't at all of the panels throughout the day, but there was talk about just more erratic weather. Some of the farmers discussed how there's just fewer planting days in the Midwest as a result of climate change and just much more erratic weather patterns and sort of more rainfall than they're typically used to.
And just very briefly, there was a discussion about certain foods and how they affect your health. Explain what that means.
Yeah, that's right. There was a lot of focus on sort of a new buzzword, ultra-processed foods. And we had CEOs from a number of different packaged food companies that were weighing in. And, these are foods that are made with highly processed ingredients. And there's a lot of concern these days about the poor health outcomes that these foods lead to because they're making up such a big part of our diet, about 60% of an adult diet and 70% of a kid's diet. So just a look at the health impacts and what the food industry is doing to combat it.
Wall Street Journal reporter Jesse Newman. That was really interesting. Thanks a lot, Jesse.
Thanks, John.